And good thing he didn't, because even though we was friends, but if a motherfucker pays you, I got a bullet into my skull, and one of the best friends I had ever had in life is Pac.
The FBI has just dropped a bombshell, one that's far more than another headline. This revelation has the power to rewrite history, reshape legacies, and leave the entire hip-hop world holding its breath. We're talking about Kef D, the man long suspected of orchestrating the 1996 tragedy that took Shakur from us. But now, the story has taken an even sharper turn. According to the latest reports, Kef D hasn't only confessed, he's started naming names. And the two figures now entangled in this escalating situation? None other than Snoop Dogg and Diddy. That's right. The FBI's new evidence doesn't just implicate Kef D in a potential life sentence. It allegedly ties Snoop and Diddy to the same outcome. One conviction, and the dominoes could fall for all three.
The man put a lot of out there himself. So whether it's true or it's a lie, he got to answer for that. And whatever his explanation is, we're going to see. But he said this.
Let that sink in. Kef D, the only man ever formally charged in Shakur's case, has suddenly become the linchpin in a situation that could potentially send three of hip-hop's most iconic figures away for life. The timing couldn't be more volatile. Diddy is already behind bars, serving his own sentence after a highly publicized legal battle. Snoop Dogg, a global icon, now finds his name being whispered in connection with a decades-old conspiracy. And Kef D stands at the center of it all, the man who spent years shifting between defiance and confession, between claiming innocence and describing his alleged involvement in interviews, memoirs, and police statements. But this time, the stakes go far beyond his own freedom. The real question is who else might fall with him. We've seen this story before, or at least we thought we had. For years, the Shakur case has been a maze of half-truths, retracted statements, and shadowy figures pointing fingers in every direction. But the FBI doesn't reopen a 30-year-old case on impulse. They don't discover new evidence unless someone decides to talk. And if Kef D is talking now, the question isn't just what he's saying. It's who he's implicating, and why investigators believe him this time. Because, let's be clear, this isn't just another theory. This is a federal investigation with the power to reshape lives, careers, and the very narrative of hip-hop history.
The reason we asked everyone to be here today is obviously we are the new attorneys for Dwayne Davis in the Tupac case, now set for trial February of next year. The reason in particular that we asked the media to be here is that obviously we're not trying the case in the media, but we want to establish better relations with the media.
Now, let's lay out the chessboard. Kef D is currently behind bars, awaiting a trial that has been pushed to February 2026. What was originally expected to be a case centered solely on his actions has shifted dramatically. According to insiders, during recent interviews, Kef D didn't just acknowledge his involvement. He allegedly pointed directly at Diddy, reviving long-circulated rumors that the bad boy mogul once placed a staggering bounty on Shakur's life. And then there's Snoop Dogg, a name that has surfaced in quiet conversations for years, but never with this level of gravity. Suge Knight, the former death row chief currently serving his own sentence, has been outspoken about his suspicions, even suggesting that Snoop has a lot of explaining to do. But until now, those were just theories and whispers. Today, they're part of an official FBI file.
Pac would have boxed him. Pac would have loved to beat his ass in the ring, raise some money, and give it to the hood.
The contradictions are as glaring as they are damning. Kef D has spent years swinging between two narratives: the man who orchestrated the tragedy and the man who claims he was framed. In a 2022 interview, he publicly called on Diddy to show some love, a statement that now reads like either a veiled threat or a desperate plea. Then there's his jailhouse confession to ABC News, where he tearfully insisted he was innocent, claiming he wasn't even in Las Vegas that night. But if that's true, why did he spend years telling a different story in books, documentaries, and police interviews? And if he's lying now, what or who is he trying to protect? The FBI's recent move suggests they've uncovered something concrete. something that transforms Kef D's past admissions from loose talk into potential evidence.
It's the idea here is that the state has the burden of proving it beyond reasonable doubt. We don't think that they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, just to go back a second about what was seized, also what was mentioned was some memorabilia, posters of Tupac and things like that, which we don't really think has a lot of evidentiary value, but
And if that evidence holds, the implications are staggering. Diddy, already incarcerated, could face additional charges that may ensure he never walks free again. Snoop Dogg, a man who has spent decades cultivating an image of laid-back invincibility, could watch his legacy collapse under the weight of a conspiracy theory turned federal case. And Kef D remains the wild card, the man whose next words could either bury him alone or pull others down with him. But here's where the plot thickens. If Kef D is telling the truth now, why did he lie for decades? And if he's lying today, who is he really protecting? The answers may lie in the relationships between these men, relationships shaped by loyalty, betrayal, and the kind of street politics that don't always translate inside a courtroom. Diddy has long denied any involvement, even going so far as to call Shakur's brother Mopreme Shakur in the 2000s to personally distance himself from the rumors. Snoop, meanwhile, has maintained a careful silence, though Suge Knight's recent podcast outburst suggests there's more to this story than the public has heard. And then there's the money. Kef D's claims about Diddy's alleged bounty aren't new, but they've never carried this kind of weight. If the FBI now has financial records, witness statements, or any form of corroboration, this stops being a conspiracy theory and starts becoming a prosecution. Meanwhile, Kef D's legal team has been scrambling, delaying the trial, switching attorneys, and hinting at major new developments. They know what's coming. The question is whether the public does.
He's saying that, Diddy, he put a hit out on you and Tupac, and that's the reason why Tupac got Vegas. So, yeah, man. How you feel about that?
Well, first thing first. I mean, that conversation been out there. He put his truth out there. A lot of other people put their truth out there.
The irony is almost poetic. Kef D, the same man who once openly bragged about his role in interviews and even wrote a memoir detailing his involvement, is now insisting he's innocent. He claims the system is rigged, the evidence is weak, and that he was hundreds of miles away. But if that's true, why did he spend years telling a completely different story? And if it's not true, why change his tune now? The answers may be buried in the FBI's files or in the deals being negotiated behind closed doors. Because it's important to remember, Kef D isn't just fighting for his freedom. He's fighting for his life. A homicide conviction in Nevada could mean life without parole. And if the FBI's evidence is as strong as they suggest, he might be searching for an escape route, one that involves trading information for leniency. That's how cases like this often unfold. One man flips, and the others fall like dominoes. The only real question is who's willing to talk, and what they're willing to say.
Are you surprised to know that this is where Diddy's life has ended up at the moment?
Am I surprised at that?
Are you surprised that he's currently sitting in a prison?
No.
And then there's the true wild card, Suge Knight. The former death row chief, now serving a 28-year sentence for an unrelated case, has been unusually quiet about Kef D's arrest. He's refused to testify, describing Kef D as an old friend, someone he grew up with and even played football with as a kid. But his recent podcast remarks suggest he knows far more than he's willing to admit publicly. If Suge decides to talk, if he begins confirming the rumors, the whispers, the old street legends, this case could explode in ways no one has yet imagined. But there's another layer we haven't touched on. While the world focuses on Kef D, Diddy, and Snoop, the deeper story involves power, influence, and connections that never appear in police reports. Diddy's legal team has already dismissed the allegations as fabricated attempts to extort massive payouts. Snoop's camp, meanwhile, has offered no comment at all. But in the world of hip-hop, silence can be just as telling as a confession. And then there's the timing. Kef D's trial has been pushed to 2026. Giving his defense team more time to strategize, but also giving prosecutors more time to strengthen their case.
There was a great deal of documents that were taken. In Mr. Wilson's initial press conference, he had stated that our client is presumed innocent And that's obviously a constitutional protection that every defendant enjoys. However, he had said that just recently they had come upon evidence that they felt basically corroborated their theory of the case, and he had made reference to this search warrant.
Meanwhile, Diddy remains behind bars, serving a sentence that could be extended if new charges emerge. Snoop, the man who spent decades as the face of West Coast rap, could see his reputation permanently shaken if even a fraction of these allegations gains traction. And Kef D stands at the center of it all, holding the key to what happens next. But here's the question no one seems to be asking. If Kef D is telling the truth now, why did he lie for so many years? And if he's lying today, who is he protecting? And why? Because in a case this large, with stakes this high, the truth isn't just about what happened that night in Las Vegas. It's about who is willing to take the fall and who is willing to let them. This is no longer just about a single tragedy. It's about a web of alliances, betrayals, and money, stretching from the streets of Compton to the boardrooms of New York. And if the FBI's latest actions tell us anything, it's that they may have finally pulled the thread capable of unraveling the entire web. Let's start with the money. Sources familiar with the case allege that Diddy once offered a staggering $1 million for Shakur's removal. Kef D claims the payment never came through. So where does the truth lie? And why? If Diddy had absolutely nothing to hide, why did he personally call Shakur's brother, Mopreem, in the 2000s to insist on his innocence? That's not the action of someone completely at ease. It's the behavior of a man who senses the walls tightening around him.
The boy Puffy called me, though. Puffy called me back in the day. Back in the day, he called me. He was like, I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers. You know, I know who you are, but we never met. And I just want to call you man to man, let you know that I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers. Now, why was he calling me, reaching out to me?
Now let's talk about Snoop Dogg, because this is where the story takes an even darker turn. Suge Knight, the man who was in the car the night Shakur was shot, has been vocal about his suspicions. He isn't just pointing fingers at Diddy. He's demanding answers from Snoop as well. Then there's Warren G's account, the one in which he claims Snoop and his crew had a real-time play-by-play of the shooting as it unfolded. That isn't a coincidence. That's coordination. If Snoop knew, if Diddy paid, and if Kef D pulled the trigger, then this wasn't a simple street-level incident. It was something far more calculated, far more sinister. And the question we're forced to ask is, who else was involved? But the plot thickens even further when we bring in Reggie Wright Jr., the man who was supposed to be protecting Shakur that night. Kef D's latest claim is that Wright wasn't just a bystander. He was the mastermind. On the surface, that might sound like a desperate attempt to shift blame, but let's not ignore the facts. Wright was there. He was driving the car. He testified against Kef D. And he has a complicated history of his own, including a conviction for financial misconduct. So, who is telling the truth? The convicted gang leader with a long record of changing his story? Or the former police officer with everything to lose? One thing is certain. Someone is lying. And the FBI seems determined to uncover who. We also can't overlook the timing. Kef D's trial has been pushed to 2026, giving his defense more time to prepare, but also giving prosecutors more time to dig. And they will dig, because this case is no longer about the fate of one man. It's a case that could bring down multiple legends. Diddy is already behind bars, and if new charges hold up, he may never walk free again. Snoop Dogg, an icon who shaped the sound of West Coast rap, could see his entire legacy collapse under the weight of these allegations. And Kef D remains at the center, holding the key to which direction this story turns next. The real question isn't just whether he'll talk. It's what he'll say, and who he'll take down with him. And then there's the matter of the evidence or the lack of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not taking this case trying to win it on a technicality. We're obviously still getting up to speed on the case, but we anticipate it going to trial.
Kef D's defense team has argued that the case against him rests on little more than his own past statements, many of which he now claims were fabricated for profit or made under pressure. But if that's true, why did he spend years telling a completely different story? Why did he write a memoir detailing his alleged involvement? Why did he give interviews in which he seemed to take pride in his role? The answers may lie in the deals he's made, the people he's protected, or the truths he's too afraid to confront. In a case this massive, with stakes this high, the line between guilt and survival becomes dangerously blurry. But the bigger picture cannot be ignored. This isn't just about Shakur's tragedy, it's about the culture of hip-hop, the power struggles that defined an era, and the men who rose to the top by any means necessary. Diddy, Snoop, Suge, they weren't just rappers or executives. They were kings. And kings don't fall without a fight. If the FBI has uncovered something concrete, if they found the missing piece that ties it all together, this isn't just a trial. It could be the fall of an empire. Then there's the wild card, those who aren't talking. Suge Knight, for instance, has been eerily quiet about Kef D's arrest. He has refused to testify, calling Kef D an old friend, someone he played football with as a kid. Yet his recent comments suggest he knows far more than he's letting on. If Suge starts talking, if he confirms the rumors, the whispers, the old street tales, this case could explode in ways no one has yet imagined. Because Suge isn't just a witness, he's a player. And players rarely sit on the sidelines when the stakes get this high.
He said it was, according to him, he said it was security that accepted money, participated in it, and it was so-called homies.
Let's examine who truly won that night in Las Vegas. While the world mourned Shakur's loss, the industry didn't stop moving, and the power shifts that followed his death tell a story of their own. Suge Knight's Death Row Records, once the most feared label in hip-hop, began its slow unraveling almost immediately. Without Shakur as its figurehead, the empire lost momentum, credibility, and eventually its dominance. Meanwhile, Diddy's Bad Boy Records didn't just survive, it thrived. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry that had defined the mid-90s left a vacuum, and Diddy quickly filled it with a roster of stars who would dominate the charts for years. Was it mere coincidence? Or did Shakur's absence become the ultimate green light for Bad Boy's rise? Then there's Snoop Dogg. His career trajectory shifted dramatically after Shakur's passing. He left Death Row, distanced himself from Suge's sinking empire, and eventually aligned with Diddy's camp, before becoming a global icon in his own right.
And I had known Jack the Scooter, and I used to say, "You out of your league,"
You hang with the big boys now.
Yeah, you out of your league.
The man who once rode shotgun with Shakur now had a solo lane, one that led to mainstream success, Hollywood roles, and a legacy that outlasted the very era that birthed it. And Kef D? For decades, he wasn't just a suspect. He was a legend in the streets, the man who allegedly took down a king and lived to tell the tale. His infamy gave him a kind of power, a notoriety that kept his name relevant long after most would have been forgotten. So we have to ask, in the cold calculus of the industry, who truly benefited the most from that night? Because Shakur's tragedy didn't just end a life, it reshaped an entire culture. The careers that skyrocketed, the labels that collapsed, the alliances that shifted, it all forms a pattern that looks less like coincidence and more like strategy. If that's the case, then the question isn't just who pulled the trigger. It's who was waiting in the wings, ready to step into the spotlight the moment it went dark. Was Shakur's fate the ultimate industry move? And if so, who is still collecting the profits today? In a game this ruthless, the real winners aren't always the ones holding the gun. They're often the ones holding the pen, rewriting history in their favor. Then there's the fear. Fear drives men like Kef D to change their stories, to point fingers, to make deals. It keeps figures like Diddy and Snoop silent, even when the world is watching. And fear will ultimately determine who walks away from this and who doesn't. Because, in the end, this isn't just about justice, it's about survival. In a world where loyalty is currency and betrayal comes at a cost, the only question that matters is, who is willing to pay the price? The media also plays its part. Every time Kef D speaks, every time a new document surfaces, every time a former associate comes forward, the story shifts. The public is left trying to piece it all together. But in a case this complex, the truth isn't just in the facts, it's in the silences, the things left unsaid, and the deals made behind closed doors. If the FBI's new evidence is as solid as claimed, we may finally get the answers we've been waiting for. Or we may just end up with more questions. Because this is bigger than Shakur. Bigger than Kef D, Diddy, or Snoop. This is about the untold stories of hip-hop, the secrets that shaped an entire industry, and the men who thought they were untouchable. But no one is untouchable. Not when the FBI is involved. Not when the world is watching. And not when the truth is finally coming to light. So where does that leave us? With 3 men, 1 unsolved case, and a mountain of contradictions. The FBI isn't done digging. The trials haven't even begun. And the real question isn't just who took Shakur's life anymore. It's who is next to fall. In a story this large, with stakes this high, the fallout is bound to be legendary. And we'll be watching every step of the way. Now here's where you come in. This story is far from over, and the truth may be hiding in plain sight. Is Kef D telling the truth now, or is this just another desperate move to save himself? And if Diddy and Snoop are truly involved, how deep does it really go? Drop your theories in the comments, because we're all in this together. Remember, in a world built on secrets, the only thing more dangerous than the truth is the person willing to tell it. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and as always, keep it real. We'll see you in the next one.